Thank you for joining us. My name is Jay Hodges. I'm a proud friend of Sinn Féin's. I have the wonderful honor again of speaking with the incredible Miss Michelle O'Neill. Thank you very much for taking time to join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again and for talking to us.
Well, I appreciate it. I know you're on a busy schedule. I know you have come over to the States and that you're making the rounds and kind of doing all of those things. Let's actually just start with that. Kind of what brought you over and how are you here?
So we've just had another very historic election in the north, a local government election where Sinn Fein were returned as the largest party. And I think that election comes very quickly in the aftermath of our last year's assembly election, which in itself was a very historic election. For the very first time, Sinn Fein came back as the largest party, and I'm in the position of First Minister-elect, yet to fulfil my role because of the blockage of forming a government there. So we'll probably want to talk a wee bit about that. Yeah, I'm sure. So it was important to be here this week just to update friends here in terms of what's happening at home, the current political situation, the current political impasse, the election itself. But also this week it was significant to be here because the British Prime Minister was also on the Hill, and I wanted to be here in advance of his visit because I wanted to tell our friends here that what we need is a plan to restore government back in the north of Ireland, and the British government have a huge role to play as co-guarantor of our peace agreement. And I wanted to make sure that the British Prime Minister heard from our friends who have been very steadfast in support of the Good Friday Agreement at home. I wanted him to hear again that there is that attention and that importance given towards the Good Friday Agreement from lots of people in a bipartisan way here in the States.
Well, I want to talk about the restoring government in the north. I think that that's actually a really important topic, but let's back up a little bit and let's talk specifically about the election that just happened. Sinn Fein did an absolute amazing job. Let's talk really briefly about kind of what happened in the election, but then I want to hear about kind of why it's going the way it's going, because you mentioned that the elections that happened in the South were really positive last year. You've got really good elections this year, kind of what's coming. What happened and how did it all turn on itself?
So we fought a very positive election campaign and very future focused, and because we live in changing times, so the political landscape across the island of Ireland is very much changing. And I think that in this election, people endorsed what we put forward, which was positive, it was progressive, it was looking towards the next 25 years, because we have just celebrated 25 years of our peace accord in the Good Friday Agreement, and we've had lots to celebrate. And I think that's not lost in the wider public. But in this election, they endorsed positive leadership and parties working together to try and find common solutions to problems that we have. They voted for a party that put forward our ideas around how we would deal with the cost of living, how we want to support people through these tough times. But I think they voted for positivity and they voted for change, and there's a momentum out there that comes in the aftermath of last year's assembly election that the people endorsed that message. I mean, I think at home people are very frustrated that last year when we had that historic assembly election, and I am the First Minister-elect, the First Minister in waiting, yet to fulfil my potential in that role because one party continues to block the formation of an executive. So in this election, I think people voiced their opinion on that they want to see that election result honoured, and they want the parties to get around the table and start working together for their betterment.
Now, there were 144 seats, I believe, which is a very, very impressive number. Don't pick your favorite because I don't want to start anything between any of the councillors. But if you could, tell us about just one area or one person and kind of highlight them just a little bit so we can get a kind of a feel of where the party is.
We stood fantastic candidates and a whole array of people from different backgrounds, new younger people that have come in to join the party. We've stood a number of teachers. We stood people who are really rooted in their local communities. Where I come from, 2 female candidates came forward, fantastic women, and one of which, Emer Kearney, a great girl, a young mother, recently just got married, she has 2 young boys, she's a law student, she works, and she stood for council because she cares passionately about delivering good things for her local community. So that's the kind of people that stood forward and put themselves forward for election for Sinn Fein, and that's why the public, I think, really endorsed so many of those candidates, because they can see these are people who actually care about what happens to their neighbours and their friends and their family, and what they're trying to build for their families, they want for everybody else as well.
Oh, I think that sounds amazing. I will definitely look into her and find her on Twitter.
But I'm going to get in trouble because there are many
I
fantastic.
know, and
And there were many firsts actually in this election. For the very first time, we secured a councillor in Ballymena, which is something that was probably unheard of at a time in our recent past. You know, Ballymena, Coleraine, Lisburn, we were winning seats there, which for me shows that's a really good example of the change that's happening out there, and that there's Sinn Fein representation everywhere in the north and everywhere on the island.
Well, you talked about the message and the progressive view and whatnot, and I think that actually is something that's easily understandable, at least by somebody from the outside. Of the troubles are real and they are there, but they're in the past, and people have current problems and current needs, and so I think it says something about your leadership and Mary Lou's leadership to kind of say, like, this is the direction we want to go. We refer to them oftentimes in the States as kitchen table issues. They're what people are actually talking about around the kitchen table, and housing and money in pockets and those kinds of things definitely resonates a lot here in the States, and so I see why that would be a value there. Now, the elections are passed. What happens next? Like, what are the next steps moving forward?
So 144 councillors have just been elected, so they will get to their work immediately. We now have a number of mayors and chairs across a range of councils, and they'll go to get immediately to work to represent their local constituents. But the bigger picture politics, I suppose, in terms of what comes next is, and part of the reason that I'm here this week is that we still don't have a functioning assembly and executive. So there's nobody at the helm. There's nobody there taking the political decisions that need to be taken that deal with those kitchen table issues that people are worried about. So we now have unelected officials at home taking political decisions. That's not a good place for them to be in, and it doesn't serve the public well.
Sure.
That those of us that have been given a mandate to provide that political direction aren't able to do so. The reason is because the DUP, which is one of the political parties, are refusing to come around the executive table and form power sharing, so they get down to work with all the rest. All the other parties are ready to do so, have been ready since last May. So part of the concern I have is that we're in this limbo period and politics is drifting, and that does not serve the people well. Power sharing will serve the public much, much better than the scenario, obviously, that we have right now. So what's happening is the executive isn't sitting, but part of what I'm trying to do is I'm not giving up. I'm determined to try to deliver power sharing. So I look towards the two co-guarantors of the peace accord, and that is the Irish government and the British government. And at this moment in time, I don't think that there's an urgency on the part of the British government in which to restore the executive. So part of my message to Rishi Sunak as the British Prime Minister is, what is the plan for the restoration of the executive? What is he going to do to get the DUP over the line to make sure that they join with the rest of us and actually make politics work at home? And that's the frustration piece that I think people out there feel. The fact that there is a lack of government functioning executive right now. But I can't give up. I have to keep trying, and I'm determined to keep trying. I'm determined to try and work with others. I am determined to try to make sure that we support people to achieve their potential in life, and that we help those people that need our help most, and that we start to tackle the things that are our health service is broken and needs urgent attention. Cost of living crisis is really biting and really hurting people. We need to be in there working together and trying to help people.
Now, you've talked about trying to get with the Prime Minister to kind of move us forward. I actually want to highlight something that I just found very fascinating. Your approach is not an exclusionary or us or no way or the highway or anything else. You actually have a very we need to all be in this together. Like, everybody's been doing this, so much so that you went to the coronation and attended the coronation, which a lot of my friends and a lot of the AOH that I am close with and whatnot, the Catholic community that I'm close with here, were, that is, it was an unheard of step. And my response back to them was, it's how she chooses to lead, though. It's not adversarial and fighting. She's fine walking into a room and shaking hands and saying, let's move forward. Let's start to put things in plan. Can you talk about that approach and kind of what all goes on there?
Yeah, so I made a commitment last year in the Assembly election where I said to everybody that I would be a First Minister for all. And I genuinely mean that. In my words and in my deeds, I mean that I will put that into practice. So that means that, we can all have our own identity, our own approach to things, and hold those things dear. But at the same time, we can be respectful of difference, and we can be respectful for those people in society. And the coronation was a good example of me being able to demonstrate my respect to those people of a British tradition who live in our society. those who look towards the monarchy, that's not something, that's not me, that's
Sure.
not my outlook. But there are many people who do look towards the monarchy as their head of state. So if I'm going to be the First Minister for all, then I'm going to be respectful of those people, their views and things that they hold dear. And I think that was a good example of, the type of society that I want to build, one where we're mature and civil in our discourse, and one where we are go out of our way to be respectful of each other. And let's say it's okay to be different. It's okay to be different. None of us have to surrender who we are, our political aspirations. And I think attending the coronation was absolutely the right thing. And I have to say, it's very much reflected that way to me when I meet members of the public in general, who often come up to me and say, I don't, perhaps I'm not a Sinn Féin voter, for example, or I'm
Sure.
somebody with a British identity, and I value the fact that you did that, and thank you for that. Equally, I'd say there's people out there in society who would have a problem with it, Republicans perhaps,
Yeah.
who would have a problem with it, and that's okay, because that's their outlook, and they have a very different political allegiance, but as do I. But I didn't surrender my allegiance. I just did something that was respectful and demonstrates this is the better kind of society that we can have if we work hard at it and we work together and we just respect our difference.
I think that is a great way to lead. I think it's a novel thing that we should consider here in the States every now and then, of being respectful of everyone else's beliefs. But I'm curious though. So what? You've got Stormont, and you're looking towards the assembly and trying to get some stuff there. Like, what are kind of your next steps moving forward? And then, how can your American supporters of Sinn Fein, how can we help? Where can we get involved? And those kinds of things.
So, looking towards the future, my determination not to give up is very strong. So, I have to keep trying to have power sharing restored. And I will keep trying to work with the other parties and to make sure that happens. But that's why I think, the reason I'm here this week is very important, because we have had such steadfast, strong support from the United States the whole way through our peace process. When we celebrated 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement just earlier this year, we had so many friends in the United States that were part of that celebration, who reflected on their experience, their journey, the role that they played in actually securing the peace accord itself. But I feel passionate, and I know that folks here do also, that commitment, that steadfastness to the Good Friday Agreement is still here. And I think as we move through these changing times, and as others perhaps try to change the goalposts in terms of, I'm an Irish Republican, I want to unite the people who live on the island of Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement, the peace accord itself, said it'll only be the people that'll ever decide whenever the constitutional position will change. So I think what we need to be very vigilant for in this period of change is that the Good Friday Agreement is honoured, that we make all parts of the Good Friday Agreement work, and that we fulfil the promise and the commitments that were within the agreement itself. So I think our friends here, making sure that those in the British government, for example, understand that the Good Friday Agreement is precious, and that it's not just the people in Ireland that are precious about it. It's also people who are here and who've been part of delivering it and securing it over the last 25 years.
I think that's a great thing. I would like to chime on and encourage all of the Friends of Sinn Féin in the States to reach out to your local congressmen, your local senators, encourage them to get aware of the issue, and then also to get involved. There is a caucus that is on the Hill, and it's always good to expand it. So where we can, I think we should actually plug in and encourage as much as possible. Now, before I let you go, I gotta ask a couple of fun things. First of all, on behalf of all of us here in the States, congratulations, you're a new grandmother.
I am indeed.
I think that is wonderful.
Pure joy, absolute joy.
I think that is great. But tell me this: I know you're just insanely busy right now. Are you getting a chance to read anything right now?
I did. I just finished reading a novel, which didn't require me to do very much thinking. Just switch off, and because the sun is shining very much in Ireland at the minute, it's an unusual, very hot summer already. So I was just, particularly in the aftermath of the election, you have to mind yourself. When you're very, very busy and you can get burned out. So yes, I read a novel in the last couple of weeks, which was just great to chill out. And so my spare time is now being a granny. So running home to get a wee snuggle is absolutely
think-
amazing. Yeah.
I think spending time doing that is probably better served than reading. If you would please like and share. Everybody that watches these videos has a friend, family member. They have somebody in their family that pays attention to Irish politics, pays attention to what's going on in particular. And we need to start sharing these videos far and wide, making our net as wide as what Sinn Fein is casting actually in the north.
Great.
Michelle, thank you so much
Thanks
for
so much,
joining
Jay,
us.
as always.
Until next time, thank you very much.
Take care.